Hello there, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Football Manager Therapy. I am your host, Rich Owens, and joining me this week, we have 2/3 of the FM team. We have the United City FM, Kev, and we have Callum. Jeb is in that London being important, so we miss him terribly. Jeb, I hope London has treated you wonderfully, and we miss you terribly. But in regards to the people that are here this week, Kev, how are you doing, buddy?
Can I just confirm that I don't miss Jeb terribly, because that sounds like we're doing it really badly. I miss him really well. I'm very good at it. So yeah, miss you, Jeb. Hope you're doing good. I'm doing good, thank you very much. I was just about to say it's a lovely day, Sunday morning for a podcast. It's almost not, is it? It's almost afternoon now. We've been chatting for a little while, but it's been good to catch up with you guys. Rich, I am doing fine. Are you fine? Something is different about you, Rich, and I'm not 100% sure what it is, but are you all right?
Oh, yeah. We need to talk about the elephant in the room, don't we? I'm now forklift certified, Kev. So that's what this is. This
there was something different about you.
Yeah. I've got project and purpose now. I can shift a pallet. No, I'm good, mate. I'm very, very good. For the audio listeners, I look a bit weird. Weirder. Yeah, we'll explain why shortly. The phrase B-Tech Will Hughes has been thrown about quite a lot, a variety of chats in the last week or so. But no, I'm doing fine, mate.
Good. I'm glad about that, because I am too, and it's great. We're here together again for another podcast. Woo!
I know, and below you on the screen for the audio listeners, back once again, like the Renegade Master, it's Callum. Callum, how are you, pal?
I'm great, thank you. I'm just getting over the fact that Kev just wooed. I never thought I'd hear Kev woo.
It's podcast day. It's the best day of the week.
Here we are. I'm really good, thank you. I joined this little voice chat. I don't know when it was, about 3.5 hours ago, I think, last time I checked. In a really good mood, and my mood has continued to be good. So that is excellent. They've upheld my mood.
It's not always the case when we join.
No, it's not. It's usually
absolutely
the other way around.
Absolutely not.
Normally.
But no, I'm looking forward to talking about Football Manager for a little while. How are you, Rich?
Yep, still good. Still good. Yeah.
Could you ask again as well? Because I'm not convinced.
But how are you, Callum?
I'm great, thanks, Kev. But how are you?
Brilliant.
I love this.
I'm pretty good, It's a Sunday morning. It's a podcast. It's good. Best day of the week. Woohoo, and all that lot, Yeah.
He wooed
just to try and get this back on the rails, lads. How are you both? How have you been? Yeah. How are things? How are the families? How is
viewers, listeners? How are you?
How are you?
How are you?
I mean, really though. Don't just tell us you're fine.
No.
How are you?
Because
how are you?
How are you? Yeah, Kev knows.
I didn't expect us to lose it this early.
No.
This must be a new record.
It's up there, isn't it? It's up there. Yeah, but just 10 minutes of normally with the three of us, it seems to be just 10 minutes of just abstract before we somehow get it back on the rails. It's
come on, Rich, you can do this.
The system. I can do it, but I don't really want to. I do. I'd love to. I would love to. I think before we start talking about Football Manager, we should probably, as I say, address the elephant in the room.
Can we talk about the fact that Callum's camera's gone fuzzy and he doesn't know how to fix it? Can we, please? Go on.
He doesn't know how.
I'm trying to do it silently.
He's trying to do it very, very
Callum,
subtly.
You're supposed to doing it. You're trying to do it subtly, but this still is a video podcast on YouTube.
Oh. He has fixed it now.
Hey!
There he is. He's back
I knew how to do it, really.
Of course you did.
There is one thing that's now concerning me, Rich. You so far you've made reference to, I think, about 6 elephants in your room now. I'm a bit worried about how much space you've got, mate.
How big is your room?
Yeah.
It's only 5 elephants big, which is kind of the problem. So if there's 6 in here, it's cramped.
So we're talking, I think, about elephant in the room number 3. Go on, talk about it.
Many elephants, many elephants. My hair's a funny color, and I've got my mustache,
Isn't it?
which
It's
feels
funny.
really weird. Feels
so
weird. My children, Bonnie quite likes it, but my son, we were saying before we started chatting, it was only so my hair got changed on Monday. We're about to explain why. And it was Thursday before he really kind of warmed up to me. I tried to give my son a hug on Wednesday and he flinched. So, but the reason I look like this, on Monday, I streamed for just shy of 16 hours in the end, doing some fundraising to raise some money for my wonderful friends Bert and Sean. After Bert's very, very horrible motor neuron disease diagnosis. So I did 16 hours of streaming, give or take, and I had a wonderful time doing it. My hair changed color. I lost my mustache. I consumed arguably the worst sandwich I have ever eaten.
Was that after the one that I made you eat?
Yes, just later on.
Okay, yeah.
How many sandwiches did you have?
Too many.
So many sandwiches. I streamed for 16 hours, and the only thing I ate in that 16 hours was a single banana and salt and vinegar crisp sandwich.
It was very filling.
It was so filling. Genuinely, I could feel it in my stomach until like the Wednesday, and not in a good way. Not like I'd swallowed a disgustingly textured brick.
You are very welcome, Rich.
Thank you, Kev. Sincerely, thank you so much. What a suggestion. What a man. I did lots of streaming, and we raised a frankly incredible £639. So
amazing.
Thank you to every single person that watched the stream, that donated, that engaged with any of the stream or the tweets surrounding it in any capacity. Thank you, because genuinely wonderful. Like, my target was £500 and we smashed it. So at the time of recording, the money has now been donated across to Bert and to Sean.
Awesome.
If you look at my social, I did it a couple of days ago and it felt nice. It was a good feeling. So that donation has helped them get over their initial target for fundraising, which means that, fingers crossed, that money can now be invested into doing the really, really good things for Bert that they wanted to do. Things like the eye tracking technology, so he can carry on making incredible art, all singing, all dancing, all terrain wheelchair for him, so he can still get out and about as much as
they're so annoying when you can't stop them singing and dancing and you're trying to trundle along. They are
just trying to sit in them, just trying to sit in them, and they're singing show tunes, and it's all like a bit of this, and then for the audio listeners, Rich has raised his arms. It's remember from last pod. It's one of those. It's one of those. But thank you, genuinely, thank you, everybody. I was so tired at the end of the stream. I was very, very tired. But here's the irony. Here's the thing. I finished that stream. And if people didn't catch very much of it, nothing screams high quality, high octane Football Manager content like a cumulative 3 hours of job hunting on stream.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, which again, a lot of people hung around for, which was ever so weird, because I got a new job in the save right at the end of the stream. I woke up the next morning. I was like, God, I just want to start playing Football Manager again. 16 hours yesterday wasn't enough Football Manager. I just want to get back on there and carry on playing it. I was so excited to carry on playing Football Manager after playing it for 16 hours and talking loads. So
nice.
Testament to the game, I think. Testament to the game. But thank you, everybody. It was amazing. And I had a lovely time and would like to do it again at some point in the future. Just long streams, man. Long streams are fun. I know, Kev, you've potentially got one coming up very, very soon, haven't you?
I don't know whether it's going to be fun or not. We shall find out. I have, yes. I'm celebrating my 3rd Twitch anniversary tomorrow as we speak. Ooh. On Monday with potentially a long stream, depending on how generous my chat are in keeping me there on the subathon that we're doing, basically. But could be an hour, could be 12. Who knows? And I might have a purple beard at the end of it. So, we're going to look a right pair by next week, aren't we? Midlife.
How many banana and salt and vinny sandwiches are you going to smash during your stream, Kev?
I've got the ingredients for lunch.
Yeah. Is that what's for lunch, though? Because I feel like, okay.
I'm going
I'll
to
be
prove
waiting.
that I like them. I've got it for my lunch. I've got them sitting over there, ready and waiting. And
I would
if my chat get me through to lunchtime, that is, of course.
Inevitably when, Kev, inevitably when. I'd like you hooked up to a lie detector when you eat it. So,
okay. I'm sure I've probably got one lying around somewhere.
You probably have.
I've never won.
And an official adjudicator monitoring it as well. So when you go, delicious, I want to see somebody in the background just staring down. When you go, oh, that was tasty, I want to see somebody do this.
Yeah, all of my bites of it are going to be from this angle. For any audio listeners, sorry.
There's this week's clip, everybody. There you go. That's completely unrelated. Kev, have you had any funny new gen names come through recently, or
no, not at all?
Good. Okay, brilliant.
But for everybody other than the three of us and Jeb, nobody's going to know.
No.
I haven't shared anybody.
I probably wouldn't either.
Football Manager can create some very unique new gen names at times. That's all I'm going to say.
Sometimes it's okay that things are just for us. Just for us. Oh, lovely. Well, do you like how we kind of got it back onto the rails and then just skewed wildly off them again?
Amazing. We are very gifted at that.
We are so good. So in summary, thank you, everybody. Watch Kev stream tomorrow and watch him consume a hideous sandwich. That's what we've learned from this opening section of podcast.
I think he loves it and has had one every day ever since.
I can't stop eating them, Kev. That's the problem I've got. If anything, there's too much potassium in my system now because the amount of the sheer volume of bananas I'm consuming in sandwiches, it's terrible. Absolutely terrible. My kids really Bonnie really liked it.
I'm telling you.
Weird. You can keep telling me, I won't believe you. Now, there was actually something Kev wanted to talk about this week.
Yes.
The base of this week's filling, not banana and salt and vinegar. Content, delicious content filling. It's something, Kev, you've been wanting to chat to us about for quite a little while, actually. And I thought this week, why not? Why not actually, just have a little peek under the hood and start having a proper conversation about this? Player instructions, mate. Player instructions on Football Manager 24. It's something that when we were having our quite long preamble before we hit the record button, as it turns out, as a collective, as three people on a podcast, we all have very differing levels of experience with player instructions. It's a feature of the game that some of us use quite a lot. Some of us don't use at all. Before we carry on talking, listeners, just pause the podcast now and see if you can guess. See if you can put it in order from most to least. You're probably right. You're probably correct. So, Kev, take us away, pal. So, player instructions in FM24.
Yeah. So, do you remember, I think during FM23, the 3 or 4 of us on our podcast had a conversation about training in the game?
Yes.
As an aspect where it's kind of quite divided through the player base within our community of online gaming community as to whether people do it or they don't do it, and reasons for that, the simplicity of not doing it compared to the benefits of doing it or not doing it, all that kind of stuff. So we had that conversation. So I think there is a number of parts of this game that are on a scale of easy to complicated, but also on how impactful they are compared to not being impactful, etc. And I think player instructions falls into these sorts of categories in the sense that if you are going for the easiest way to play Football Manager these days, we've all talked about the fact that in theory, if somebody comes to you on your stream and says, I'm new to the game, what do I do? Your basic response is pick a decent team, preferably one that you know a fair amount of, maybe the one you support, put in a 4-2-3-1 and plug in the gegenpress and just let them play for a while, and you'll begin to understand how things work a little bit, and then you can tweak it as you go and move it around. That in its simplest form is how to play Football Manager. Plug in a 4-2-3-1 gegenpress and let your team play and then tweak it. On top of that, you've then got a bunch of team instructions and formational changes that you can make to determine whether your players play in certain ways and your team structures in certain ways. You can make them more defensive, less defensive. You can make them narrower, wider, all sorts of other bits and pieces. And that is the next layer of complexity on the game, tweaking it, trying to make it your own and still making things work. On top of that, you can then go into every player on the pitch or every position on the pitch and identify player instructions for that particular role and how you want it to be played. Now, I wasn't doing this particularly up until a few weeks ago. When I started, for purely the reason of I got into another of those moments for myself of going, what part of this game am I not doing? What am I missing out on? What am I not getting the benefit from? I'm here every weekday afternoon on a live stream playing it, and I think I've made this version of FM too simple. I don't think I'm doing it in the best way I can be. And this was one of the things that came up, player instructions. So I dived into it a little bit. And at the time, I was playing in a 4-4-2 setup. I think it was with Celtic before it all went incredibly wrong and I had to change all the structures and the stuff, but that's neither here nor there. And I went in and put a ton of player instructions in. Now, considered and well thought out ones, not all of them across every single position, all that kind of stuff, but key ones like, for example, if you've got a right winger and his job is to stay on the right-hand side and cross the ball in because you've got a target forward in the box and you've got an inside forward on the left-hand side coming in at the back post as well that's quite tall, you want your winger to be putting the ball in the box. But do you want him to be, aiming for the near post, the far post, the target forward, the person making the late run? Do you want him to drop it back to the top of the box? There's lots and lots of things you can get that individual player to do. The question I have is, one, do you do these things? Two, if you do or don't, why do you or don't you? And three, what impact does it have? Because for me personally, I was really surprised, and I don't know why, because I used to do this before becoming a content creator. It had quite a positive impact. Now, the final question I have, if we can remember any of the questions I've already asked, is, does it make it more or less complicated for your players and therefore your team to function if you use these? Because the complexity levels of FM is something that we've talked a little bit about, what you can do to make it more complicated, etc. And does it confuse? But the question is, if you give them a very specific instruction, does it actually make it more simple for them to follow? Have at it, fellas. Tell me what you think. What do you do? Don't you do? Why do you? Why don't you? Etc.
Can I start? So I think it is all very, very dependent on the position and the role. So what I mean by that is, if you actually look behind the hood of certain roles, a lot of them have a lot of instructions and a lot of them have none. And I think for a long period of time, I had no idea about that. I think I was putting a player on attacking midfielder. And I thought, that's fine. He's being an attacking midfielder. He'll do all the things attacking midfielder would do. If you put a player in attacking midfielder, they have no player instructions at all. So if I put I'm on the game right now, so if I put my one in there, the instructions is blank. So you are not telling that player to do anything. So he's just working off his own decisions. He's working off his own whatever he wants to do, wherever he wants to be on the pitch, he can do it because you've not told him to do anything differently. However, if you then go to a different role, for example, if I go to a deep lying playmaker, a position that's used an awful lot, I've clicked on mine here, and without adding any instructions whatsoever, he's already been told to shoot less often, take more risks, and hold position. So that player there, you're giving him a lot more instruction than you are for your attacking midfielder. And I think the roles that sound a little bit more like they should have something to do with it, will in theory have more that you've already told them to do. By telling a player you are a halfback, you are already telling that player to dribble less and to hold his position. So without doing anything else, you're doing it. Whereas if you've got a central midfielder, so for example, I've got a central midfielder on attack, because I've told him to go on attack, his only instruction is to get further forward. And so I think it is important, especially when you look specifically at player attributes, you can each player can individually be like, right, okay, this player is fantastic at crossing, but awful at dribbling. So I want him to dribble less, and I want him to cross more. And I want him to cross from deep as well. And my favorite instruction that you can find in all of these is with regards to crossing. And it is, where are you putting your crosses?
Yep.
You can aim them at the far post, you can aim them at the center, you can aim it at the near post, or if you choose the right answer, you can aim it at your target forward.
Hey!
And I tell you what, if you are someone who utilizes a target forward like myself and Kev are, if you get everybody crossing it to your target forward, it's magic. It's magic to watch, because any time your players get in a crossing position, they are aiming for him. They're always aiming for your target forward. And I play with a little nippy quick striker and a big striker. And I have done for 10 years. I've had a target forward, the same target forward, Hamzad Kargbo, for 10 years. And he is our top goal scorer of all time. And it's because any time they get in that crossing position, he's there and they cross it into him. And if I just put it into the center of the box, put it into the near post, put it into the far post, he's not always there. But if they're specifically aiming for him, my wing backs get so many assists through it because they're specifically aiming for him. And he is far outplaying his attributes because he can head the ball and that's about it. And if you're aiming for his head, it's brilliant. So I think at its core, it depends on the role you're putting, the role you're using, but it can become so personalized to the extent where it's actually quite exciting. If you get, a player who's rubbish at shooting, just tell him not to shoot, basically, and things like that. And I think it becomes a game where you sort of see your team play it out, and it's a lot more engaging because you know exactly what you've asked them to do. And it doesn't mean they won't do it as well. Like that's the other thing. If you tell them to shoot less, it doesn't mean they will never shoot again. But in theory, they should shoot less. And if they do shoot loads, they're going against your instructions, and you can immediately dismiss them from their job. Just release them from their contract. I've told you to shoot less, and you've had 3 shots in this game. I'm afraid that is a sackable offense.
Definitely.
Yeah. Now that's it. That's an interesting way of looking at it, I suppose, because weirdly enough, if you played the guessing game from earlier in terms of people that utilize this as a feature in FM, all the way down to the people that just don't. Hello, it's me. Don't. For a number of reasons. Firstly, Callum, you've actually put it quite well. When I'm setting up a team, when I'm setting up a tactic on FM, I'm very, very carefully considering the roles of each player and the specific role they play within the team. I try, where applicable, to base a tactic around like this is how I want to set up. Have I got the players that fit this system? And if I haven't, I'll try and bring in players to play that specific role. It's not very often I set up a tactic which is based around, right, this player is a perfect Mazzala, so I've got to have a Mazzala in the formation. This player is definitely a complete wing back, so I need to have a complete wing back in there. That's not how I tend to do it. I'm like, right, this is what I want. I want 2 fullbacks on defend. Have I got them? Yes, brilliant. In they go. If not, I'm going to go shopping. Because those roles, generally speaking, like, for example, I'm looking at my Wolfsburg team at the moment, and I've got, on the right-hand side, I've got my best player in the team by an absolute mile. I've got him as a right winger on attack. And his instructions are dribble more, cross more often, cross from the byline, get further forward, and stay wider. That is exactly what I want him to do. That ticks all of those boxes for me, because looking at his attributes, some of them are incredible. The attributes that where he's got above 12s, they're mostly 15s and 16s, if not higher. Like his dribbling is 16, first touch of 16, passing of 16, technique of 16, crossing of 15, vision of 14, all very, very, very good. He can't shoot. 7 finishing, 12 composure, but if you put him in front of goal in a one-on-one, he misses his opportunities, which is far better suited to playing out wide on the right-hand side. And that's what I like my wide men to do. I don't play with target forwards because I've spent FM after FM after FM struggling to get anything out of them. So I'm still convinced that you guys don't use them at all, and you're just lying to me because it's funny. But I want somebody who's little and quick to get down to that byline and then just drill it into the box low. All my crosses are low.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I set it with every single tactic. So just don't trust the floaty crosses. Lower crosses are more effective in my experience. And I score loads of goals with them. Shake your head as much as you like, Callum. I am correct. I'm objectively correct. I score loads of goals from them. But that's what I want my winger to do. Get to that byline, drill it into the box, and then I will always have, there's always going to be a central striker, if not two, if I'm playing two up front. There are always bodies in the box, and inevitably I score a lot of goals that way. So that's what I want that winger to do. When I'm looking at that winger, there's not much more that he's not already doing because of that specific player instruction that I want him to be doing. And it's the same with all the other roles in the team. Callum, you've talked about just an attacking midfielder who is essentially a blank canvas. I don't use them in my system. I can't remember the last time I just had a straight up attacking midfielder in the team, because again, it suits me better to put in a trequartista, to put in a shadow striker, to put in an advanced playmaker, because again, they are doing the instructions on those positions, generally speaking. That's what I want that player to be doing.
But you could make that attacking midfielder have the instructions to specifically complement that player. So if you're using a trequartista or using an advanced playmaker, it might be a best fit. They might tick most, not all of those boxes that you're asking them to do. With an attacking midfielder, if your attacking midfielder is fantastic at long shots, not got the best vision in the world, is a really good crosser of the ball, you could go, right, I want you getting out wide. I want you doing this. I want you shooting from range. I don't want you passing as much. Don't take risky passes, just short passing. And you can specifically create a role, and it's not a named role. It's just attacking midfielder. But in reality, what you're doing there is you're creating the exact role that midfielder wants to be. And you're creating a role that would suit that midfielder down to the ground. Now, what it does do, however, is with rotation, that's where you then would create issues. So if you subbed that attacking midfielder and you brought on a different attacking midfielder who's the opposite, that attacking midfielder is actually a fantastic ball player and is really bad at shooting from range. He's quite slow, so wouldn't get out to wide areas to cross. Those instructions would stay on him, I believe. Feel free to correct me, Kev, if I'm wrong.
I'll come back on that one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you do have to be careful about the fact you're catering towards that specific player, I suppose, with that role. But I personally like the central midfield attack role. I think has been, was it last year or the year before where it was unbelievably overpowered? Like they would get so many goals. And I feel like that's just the equivalent of the attacking midfield. It's the equivalent of the central defender as well, really. And don't get me wrong, the central defender has got a little bit more on there, stuff that you'd expect, shoot less often, dribble less. They're a defender. But bizarrely, when you then look at a ball playing defender, all they've got is take more risks. That's it. That's the only instruction for a ball playing defender. So it's actually really interesting to look at each individual role and go, well, I would have assumed a ball playing defender would have more instructions than just a central defender, but it hasn't. So there is a real variety. Go on, Kev, tell me I'm wrong.
No, it's cool. It's no problem at all. It's not that you're wrong. I'm on my tactics page at the moment. So I've got the pitch on the left-hand side with the players, and I've got the player list on the right-hand side. About 3 or 4 columns in, there's a small column with little boxes that you can click into on position and player, or position and personalized, it says. And you can set a particular player when they come in to play a particular role. And when you flip him out for somebody else, if both of their player instructions are set to personalized, they will come in and play that role their way.
That's really good.
Or you can leave it so it becomes a positional player instruction, and whoever comes in plays that way if you've got 2 that are very similar in sense. So you can actually sort of minutely personalize that. It's not something I see a lot of people doing. I use it a fair amount, if I'm totally honest. Within my 25-man squad, I will create a player identity for a particular person and have it set to personalized, so I know that whenever they come in, they're just defaulting to that rather than playing the player the position role. So it's something that I use quite a bit. Rich, you're right winger, mate. Great player, going forward, puts your little whippy crosses into your little targety, non-targety forward, should I say, who's going to get you goals and stuff. Does he have a particular player that he marks? Does he have a particular setup in terms of how hard his tackles are going in, etc.? Because it's that side of the game that I think people are missing out on a little bit as well. My right winger, if I go and look at him, has got all of those things, because I've got a target forward. Stay wider, put the ball into the box from the byline, aim for the target forward, shoot less often, all those kinds of things to make those things happen. He also, if the opposition are playing a left fullback, if the opposition are playing that, he man marks him. But he doesn't do it with hard tackles because I took that off, but he does mark tightly. So potentially my right winger now tracks the fullback if he moves forward a little bit more because he's being specifically instructed to do so. And it's just those little things. I understand that people tend to look at a player role and say, right, my defensive midfielder's got to be combative, or my right winger's got to be a good crosser of the ball, or my target forward's got to be a great header of the ball. But they forget that actually when that particular thing isn't happening in their game, they've still got to function within a team that is supposed to be tactically tight. So, for example, my target forward who plays up front in a supportive role, I've got him man marking any form of defensive midfielder from the opposition, because my other striker is going and pressing the central defenders in that sense, but I want to stop that defensive midfielder being the through ball into their midfield, etc. So it's also just about what they're doing in the defensive or the opposite side of their game compared to what you're asking them to do as their main role. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. That's really interesting, because I don't see, again, when I set up my teams. So if I look at the instructions that I've got on for the team in the formation that I've so just for context, with this Wolfsburg side, it's that. So I've got 3 centre backs. It's essentially 5 at the back, and I've got a Segundo Volante and I've got an anchor next to him because I'm super trendy. I'm one of those really trendy managers now. So I've got a flat back 3. I've put a libero in there because I remember from when we did our Broken Chelsea at the very start of the year, I had a libero in and the libero was fantastic. And I've been seeing some quite good results from the liberos in this setup. So I thought, you know what, it'd be fun to give it a go. Let's try a libero, and it seems to have been working so far. If it hadn't been, would have been the first thing I've gotten rid of, because there's no point in sticking with it if it isn't working. And then up top, I've got 2 wingers, and then I've got my advanced forward through the middle. In terms of the instructions for the team, again, and again, I look at the out of possession instructions. We prevent the short goalkeeper distribution, so we push up and we start to mark the defense with the 3 attacking players. Because again, we've got our midfield is generally quite big, our centre backs are big, so if the keeper goes long, you would expect one of our players to be winning the headers from those long balls from the goalkeeper. So in my head, that's how that works. With that instruction, prevent short goalkeeper distribution, to me, all I've really consider I don't consider my attackers when we're out of possession. I don't consider the attack, I don't think about what they do in terms of trying to win that ball back. We've got a higher press. They get up, they get closer to the opposition defense. In my mind, it doesn't go any deeper than that. But listening to your explanation of having, like, for example, my right winger marking the opposition's left fullback, for example, why have I never thought of that? Because that just sounds really, really clever. And that doesn't factor into my decision-making process. So this is one of those episodes. I love these episodes because I learn things, and it's just nice to get the feedback from other people, I suppose. As we're talking now, I'm specifically setting my right winger to mark the opposition's left fullback if there is one in the game. Like I'm looking at my upcoming fixtures, and I really, really hope that the next team I play set up with wing backs. Let's have a quick look. They don't. Okay, they go 4-4-2. damn it, this is all pointless. I hate it.
It's funny with the man marking aspect though, because I do similar. Sometimes I don't do it all the time, but sometimes if like, especially if you've been in a division for a while, you start learning the opposition players quite a bit. And I specifically look at the centre halves because it's something that I used to do. If I was a striker in a team, I was usually the target forward, if you like, and then I would play alongside someone who was a bit quicker. And we would have conversations about which centre back we want us to mark us. So, and we would go, okay, I'm going to get marked by him. Like he's the one I could beat in the air, so I'm going to get marked by him. And for a corner, I would always mark myself. So I would go up to the smallest player, and I'd always go up to him and I'd make sure I'm marked by him. And more often than not, they go, no, you mark him. And I'd go over to him again and I'd mark myself because I know I can beat him in the air. And so why would I not, in effect, mark in an attacking sense? And it's a weird one because whenever you think of marking, you always think of marking as a defender. I'm marking this player. But actually, it can give you those small margins in attack. Like I played a game this season against Forest Green, and the centre half was a centre half I'd actually sold to Forest Green. And I knew he was very talented with his feet, but he was quite short, which is part of the reason why I sold him, because he didn't really meet what I wanted to be as a centre half. So naturally, Big Hamzad Cargbo, 6'6", marked him the entire game, because despite the fact he's a good defender, Hamzad's going to beat him in the air every single time. And because of that, we got those marginal gains, and Cargbo scored a goal in that game. And so it's an aspect again, which I think if you said to someone, have you ever got a defender to man mark a player in FM? Most people probably go, yeah, that player was playing really well. Even if it was during a game, I then got into man mark one. How many people have got an attacker to man mark a defender? I mean, it's going to be considerably less. And it's worth giving it a go. By all means, it doesn't work every time. Sometimes it will go wrong. But, even if it's just a case of observing which defenders where. Tom Lockyer was 36, the lad from Luton playing in the National League. Brilliant defender, couldn't run. So naturally, I was man marking him with my pacey striker, because every time I wanted the ball going in one-on-one against Tom Lockyer, I wanted it to be not with Cargbo, who probably couldn't outrun him. I wanted it to be the pacey striker. So it's those, as Kev said, it's just about, it's going a little bit deeper, isn't it? That's ultimately what you're doing, because Football Manager at its core is quite a complicated game. However, they put a variety of things to make it less complicated by letting your staff do a variety of things, if not most things. Like, you could really buy the players. I mean, you could get someone else to buy the players for you, but you could buy the players and then get the assistant manager to choose the team every week, the assistant manager to do the training, the assistant manager to do literally everything. And you just sit back and watch your team win or lose or draw. Or you can do everything, like literally everything, and make it so tailored. And we regularly bring up the podcast with Nick Madden, and I'm going to do it again now. It's about small margins. We said to Nick Madden, does it make any difference if you do press conferences? And he said, yes, the margins are small, but it does impact it. If you do training, does it impact it? Yes, it's small, but it does it. And all these small margins will make for a better side. Now, if you get it wrong, it would make for a worse side. Those margins will go against you, but it just gives you that option to make it a more engaging match, I think, because you're seeing exactly what you have instructed your players to do be implemented, and it's brilliant. It's really, really good.
Yeah.
I agree with that enormously. Flip side of the coin, there's nothing that frustrates me more on Football Manager than watching your players ignore your instructions.
No, I love it.
And
love that.
Okay. Oh, brilliant. Okay, well, there we go. So chalk and cheese, aren't we? I see it more often than not with goalkeepers. Goalkeepers are so my instructions for goalkeepers are the same with every single tactic I have created, probably for the last couple of FMs. Play it short, knock it out to the fullbacks, or that's how I like to start my moves. Play out from the back. I generally tend to not have or not have on purpose. I don't specifically go out looking for the Hamza Cargbos of the world. I don't have 6'6" strikers. I don't have that big target man up front that we can, shift the ball more directly to. It doesn't happen. So I want my goalkeeper to utilize those fullbacks, knock it out to them, happy days. And if they're trying to prevent the goalkeeper distribution, bring the ball back into the box, because I've got defenders that are competent enough, who have good enough passing to be able to work the ball out of the box from a press, which for the most part, I try and build teams that have that capability. So I'm not trying to, I'm not shortchanging myself. I'm like, right, we're going to work it out from the back. None of your defenders can pass. None of them have the tactical awareness. None of them have the vision. So we're just going to get tackled and lose the ball and concede goals. I'm not shooting myself in the foot that spectacularly. There is nothing that upsets me more, and it happens, save after save after save, where you're like, right, goalkeeper, short goal kicks, out to the fullbacks. We build from there, and they go, nah, I've got a plan. I've got a plan. I'm going to kick it as hard and as far as I can. In some cases, straight to the opposition defense, because I haven't got a player that high up the pitch. And they win the ball back. And from that goal kick, they go down the other end and you concede from them winning the possession back from that goal kick. To my mind, there is no reason for the goalkeeper to be ignoring those instructions.
Yeah, I'll let Callum come in. I'm desperate to, but I'll let Callum come in.
Go on then, Callum. Tell me why I'm
wrong. Know these goalkeepers that you sign with 20 decision making and 20 concentration?
Yes.
Is that what you're doing? Every single goalkeeper. So they're excellent. They're going to follow. This is the beauty of the game. It is the beauty of the game. It's also the bit that hurts. But the reality is these are computerized human beings, and computerized human beings have their own decisions to make. They also make mistakes. And if they didn't, the game would be so boring. It'd be so boring. We're talking about player instructions now. If you told that player to shoot more often, and every single time he got the ball, he shot more often, it would be boring. You want that element of those decisions involved in it. And although, don't get me wrong, at times you are right that a goalkeeper, if you're telling him to always play it short and he always knocks it long, that's different. But if, more often than not, he's doing it short, but he does do it long, and then you pay for that, there always needs to be like a plan B involved and stuff. I just think, for me personally, one of the things that makes the game so perfect is the imperfections within it. And that is what, when you're watching a game of football, we are not robots. And don't get me wrong, at the elite, we're getting near it. The way they're athletes, they are when you the interviews they do after the games are boring because they're all media trained. They all follow instructions to the letter, and they can run all day long. Like, we are as near to having robots in the Premier League as we are without having robots. However, we are still human, and so you do see these small margins make different decisions and outcomes, I suppose.
It's interesting because I was going to make a slightly different point.
Okay,
it gets to the same place, kind of, but my point was slightly different. Rich, you have asked your goalkeeper to play it short all the time, in any circumstance, whether it be throwing or kicking, play it short. Do you still want your goalkeeper to do that if the opposition have decided we're going to man mark your central defenders, we're going to man mark your fullbacks, and we're going to man mark your defensive midfielder? Do you still want him to do that? Because the likelihood is, if you ask him to do that and the opposition have determined that that's what you do for the last 7 times you've cleared the ball, so we're going to now press you in and stop you from doing it, he's going to lose you the ball. And then on top of that, my other point was going to be, you're a streamer, Rich. I hate to break this to you live on a podcast. You're a streamer. I know, right? I have failed to make substitutions in my stream in the last couple of weeks because I was talking to my chat. And so it's hard to concentrate solely on the game as much as we would like to. And the other point that I would ultimately make is we're playing on key highlights. For the 90% of the game that we don't see, your goalkeeper is drifting it out short to your centre back, and he's clearing it out to the wide positions, and your team is moving on. The one time that you watch your goalkeeper doing it and he's messing it up is because something has happened in the game that he can't, and that has led to a highlight because the opposition have done something, or your goalkeeper's just done a weird 5 minutes and just had a mare. And it happens. But those are the things that impact it. It's not just a simple case of, I have asked my goalkeeper to do this, I expect him to do it, because he has to make decisions based on what's in front of him. But it's also the 90% of the time we don't see because we're not watching the 90-minute game, I guess.
I think that's fair. That's fair. So what I'm hearing, Kev, is that we need to be playing on full 90-minute games.
That is what you're hearing, absolutely. Yeah. I will now be playing one game per stream in my weekly afternoon live streams, absolutely. And I will get through a season possibly in 3 months or something, maybe. I don't know. Who knows? But yeah, exactly that. But yeah, this is the nuance of the game, isn't it? This is the great thing about it in terms of the actual Football Manager game, but also the football game as well. We are football managers. And again, one of the hardest things to do on a live stream is actually manage your team in game, because there's so much nuance in it. But you're chatting with people in your chat for most of it and not paying any attention to that whatsoever. So it becomes really complicated. So my takeaway, Rich, don't beat yourself up about it. Don't beat your goalkeeper up about it. Just accept these things happen and have a lovely time.
I just want to put a side point just before, because I think you should respond to it, Rich. But I just want to put a quick side point. I want to back up goalkeepers, because I think so many people playing key highlights, and key highlights do goalkeepers dirty so bad. You are constantly seeing keepers concede, maybe make one incredible save or pick the ball. You know, they're just making mistakes. Like if you watch on extended, or as you said, a full match. I've played a few games on full match and I love it. It's just not sustainable to do, but like it's so interesting to watch the match engine work in real time, sort of thing. But I just think key highlights are so harsh on keepers, and the amount of times, like I've had it where I've actually hated my goalkeeper because all I see him do is make mistakes. And then I move it to extended highlights, and then suddenly it's like, hold on, my goalkeeper's really good. He makes all these saves all the time. Why wasn't he doing this before? Oh, wait, because they weren't showing it to me. You know, he miraculously had a 7.1 rating, and I've seen nothing of the game so far. And it's because he's made 5 saves, but they weren't notable enough to become a key highlight. And I think that is the thing about key highlights. A goalkeeper's rating is always so harsh. It is so harsh. If they save a penalty, it goes up to like a 7.8. But outside of that, how they very rarely get over like a 7 as a goalkeeper. And I just think the match engine on key highlights specifically is so mean on goalkeepers. Like they just get such a bad rap. All you see is the strikers score. They always look brilliant, don't they? The strikers are always ones putting the ball back in there. And who are they putting it past? Those poor goalkeepers.
Poor goalkeepers.
Poor old goalkeepers that just can't follow simple instructions. No, you know what? I will. Again, I think you both, because I'm not approaching this from I'm not approaching this from a position of I'm right and you're wrong. How dare you both?
Sure.
Because again, it's a learning curve, isn't it? And I think it's a valid point. You know, you might be seeing that distribution from the goalkeeper. You know, it might just be the only time. It might be the only time in that game that you see that highlight where it starts from a goal kick. Your keeper goes really, really long. You instantly lose possession and end up conceding. So that's fair enough. And again, it's, things like decision making and things like concentration, I suppose, do have to factor in to an extent. I mean, my position, I get frustrated because it's one of the core principles of the team and the tactic and how we set up. It's like if you set up like a 3-4-2-1 like I've got, and then on match day they're like, we're actually going to play a 4-4-2. You'd be like, no, just follow the rules, follow the basic instructions, please. Like that's fair enough. And
I get as frustrated with that as about the conversation we had last week. I think it was about the fact that my players seem to do stupid things in really big games against big opposition to help them. It's that sort of thing. There's no reason for it. There's no rhyme or reason for it necessarily. It drives you nuts. But again, it's those key highlight moments, I think, compared to the rest of the game with them being absolutely faultless of what you're asking them to do. It's really strange, isn't it? There is one other player instruction that I would like to draw your attention to, if I may, because it's in a slightly weird spot in the actual game menus itself. So if you're on your tactical page and you've got your pitch up with all your players on it, and you click on one of the players, you obviously get up the little menu that gets you to edit your player instructions, right? That's great. That's fantastic. But there is one player instruction not in there, but it is quite close by. If at the top of the menu above the pitch, you've got overview, player, set piece, penalties, etc. If you go to the player tab, you get a completely new page come up, and then you click on the same player on your pitch. So if I want to talk about my right winger, for example, his now come up, his instructions are there, his ability to edit is there, his ability to make it a positional thing or a personalized thing is there. Go down to the bottom of that section and it says swap positions with. Now that used to be in the menu of editing a player's player instructions years ago, I believe. I might be wrong, but that's my perception, because for a long time, I was under the impression that they took it away as an instruction thing you could do, and then I found it. And the key moments these are used for example, in my 4-4-2 setup with Man United that I've currently got, I've got a right winger on his right foot putting crosses in. I've got a left winger playing as an inside forward on his right foot and having shots at goal. They are both right-footed and both do quite a few different things. What if occasionally you get those two to switch around and just play on the opposite side for a while? They're still playing the same roles, they're still doing the same things, but it's a different person, it's a different height that the fullback has now got to deal with on that side for a moment, or whatever it might be. And it's just one of those little things. I don't know why it's now where it is, but I think it's quite an interesting one to make note of and use occasionally. So there's just a little bit. I'm sure most people out there have found it and have been using it for years in its place, but it used to be under the edit player instructions, I believe, and now it's not. And Callum's shaking his head to suggest he didn't even know it was there. So, there you go.
I've never even clicked on this screen. I love it. This is way better than just doing it through the tactics screen, because it shows you your player traits as well.
Yep.
So
go on. Oh no, sorry, go on. No, please.
Well, I was just going to say, so you can literally align it with the instructions you're giving. So, for example, I've got a player here, plays 1-2s, knocks the ball past opponents. So I can look at his attributes. I can say, okay, should you be knocking the ball past opponent? Yeah, he's quite quick. His dribbling's okay. So I could then add instructions through here as well. So I can edit in there and add it on there. And I actually think that's a more well-rounded.
And it's within this one that if you realize what you've got is you've got your pitch with your starting lineup positions on it. If you click on a position, it gives you a list of the players that can play in that position. If you then individually click on them, you can decide whether it's a positional setup that you want them to adhere to or a personalized setup, and then go and make your choices based on the fact that you've got player traits and the attributes and all that kind of stuff there. It is a very interesting page to go on, absolutely. And then you can also swap the positions on that page as well. So maybe that's why it's there, because it's a more complete version of what we've already been looking at and talking about. I hadn't twigged as to why they put it on this page particularly, but again, it's just layers of this game. It's almost it's the same as the player instructions and editing them themselves. It's several layers deep. You've got to go and find it. It's not all there just sitting and waiting for you. You've got to know how to get into these spots and actually then go and do things with it. But if you find it, it can be very, very useful to you.
I love this page so much. I love it. It's absolutely brilliant.
Here's the irony. Callum is a person that utilizes player instructions fairly frequently. Is like his mind is blown by this page.
It is.
That's the only page I've ever used when I've looked at player instructions. I've never clicked on a player specifically in the tactics screen and edited their instructions from there.
Right.
So I've only ever used that player tab at the top to do it, because and it's not often that I do. We're all different, aren't we? We're all just a unique set of individuals. No, that is a very interesting way of looking at it, though, because again, it's sometimes if you play, like, I notice it quite frequently in the match engine, like on a match day. If you've got, because one of the tabs I have open on the tablet in between highlights is the opposition formation. Formation.
Absolutely.
The opposition formation. I have that open. And it's sometimes it is quite interesting, because you will very, very occasionally see, and because obviously you're in between highlights, that the clock is ticking quite quickly.
Mm.
I notice fairly frequently for example, the opposition wingers will just like swap very briefly for a period of like a minute or less.
Yeah,
they'll just switch and then switch back over very, very, very quickly. And I'm like, oh, what's the crack there? I mean, when you actually stop and think about it, of course, because like, oh yeah, we'll just swap the flanks and see if that makes a difference. And the fact that it switches back again so quickly would imply that it's not made a difference at all. So we're just going to go back to how it was previously. It's not necessarily something that I've ever, again, because for example, I look at my I look at the setup. I've got my two wide players. My left-sided player is an inside forward, so they're kind of cutting in to support the striker. My right-sided player is a winger. And I've never considered switching them over, mostly because they don't have their dominant foot isn't strong enough to be switched over and put on either side. I suppose if I had more ambidextrous attackers, that would be more of an option, because it doesn't matter what side they're on, they still have the capability to do that job quite well.
Yeah.
So I suppose that's like, if I had the capacity, if I had the players that had the weak foot ability to do it, then it opens more options up for you, I suppose. But at the moment, it's not something that I take advantage of, because I don't see the need.
And the interesting thing though is there's so many things you can do with this. If you think about, so I've got, let's say we got two central midfielders. One is a defensive one is a creative one, right? But you've set, whether they play on the right of the two or the left of the two, you've set that defensive midfield player to always play in the defensive midfield role that you set for him, whether he's on the left or the right, because you've set it to personalized instructions wherever he plays. And you've done the same for the creative midfielder. Now you can switch them in game and have them move the creative player around a little bit to either side of the pitch a little bit and find other pockets of space and then switch it back. And it confuses the opposition a little bit as to who they're working against. And sometimes it will work for you and sometimes it might work against you. Sometimes you have to take it off depending on who the opposition are and stuff. But it's the same all over the pitch. If you've got an inverted fullback on the right-hand side and a normal one on the left-hand side, but you want to switch them over, doesn't mean that they have to go and play the same role that the other one was playing on the other side. They can play the different role that you've set personalized. So you can switch it and have an inverted on the other side for a while. And it's just options and interest and uniqueness to the way your team's set up, and potentially makes it harder for the opposition to actually know, well, this is just what they do, so I'm going to counter it, So many things you can do. But again, we talked at the very beginning of this particular section about the layers of complexity. And some people want to plug in a 4-2-3-1 gegenpress and just watch their team play. Whatever the results, whatever happens, that's just what they want to do. And other people want to get in the hood, under the hood, should I say, and figure out how this all works. And what I would say is, if anybody is listening in that has been frustrated that their 4-2-3-1 non-gegenpress hasn't been working or whatever, and hasn't understood that you can go further into it and find a way to make your central attacking midfielder do something slightly different, because that will unlock things for other players, then that's what we're here trying to talk about a little bit, and just make sure that people are aware that there are options to do so. And it's like the training. If you don't do it, it won't mean that you won't win games ever. It won't mean that you won't be successful. But if you do it, it might just increase your enjoyment of the game a little bit, make you more invested in what your team is doing, because that's what we hear quite a lot. I'm not invested in my save. Make them play your way then. And that will connect you to your team a little bit more than just plugging something in and hoping it kind of works.
I think creating a style is absolutely a way of making the game more engaging. I think just plugging in a tactic, it can get mundane at times. And I think if you try and create a way of your team playing, so rather than going, this player's really good, I'm going to sign him, being like, does he fit the ethos of the side and the way I want to play? And then I'll bring him in. I mean, like my team at the moment, I like ball playing. So I want them getting which is ironic with a target forward, but it's a case of like getting the ball down on the deck, playing the ball round, almost suffocating a team with the amount we have the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the opportunity arises, getting it out wide and whipping in the cross straight away. And it works really well. Interesting. I'm looking at the swapping positions. You cannot, unfortunately, I was thinking, wouldn't it be funny if I could just swap the keeper for Hamzat Kagbo for like 10 minutes? Can't do that.
No.
You can't swap the defenders or the keeper. They can't swap positions. However, anyone in midfield or attack, including defensive midfield, can be swapped round. It does make, because I feel like this really, really aligns with wingers. I think you see wingers quite often in a game like, I'm not having a lot of joy with this fullback, so let's swap over for 20 minutes and then let's move back. Also makes it more unpredictable. As a defender, you can get complacent marking a particular player. I think it's why it's good to substitute your attacking players, because if, as a defender, if you start learning, right, that's the foot he's using, that's what he likes to do, these are the movements. Suddenly, if then you've got a new attacker to learn his moves, for 10, 15 minutes, you're bewildered a little bit. You're trying to learn him again. And then if you swap back again, you're like, what, hold on, which one was he doing? You know, and that element of confusion could get you that small little move where you could get a shot away. And I think for wingers, that works really well. For my particular system, I've got 3 central midfielders, and I'm thinking maybe my box-to-box midfielder, which is like my right-sided midfielder, and my central midfielder on attack could maybe rotate, because that might then confuse the midfield. If you've got players man marking, you're creating pockets of space there, potentially as well. So they could possibly be like my rotating at times, because then, you know, as I say, it's just making you a little bit harder to predict, making you more unpredictable as a side, which I think in football is such an important thing, because as soon as you become predictable, it is very easy to beat you. And that is why at times you can find your formation that's been working for games and games and games. Suddenly the AI works it out. And there's a lot of it I love about that. But what you then don't do is you don't go, okay, I've been playing 4-3-3. They've worked it out. I need to move to a 4-2-3-1 now. No, you tweak. You don't change, and that's when these player instructions come into their own, because suddenly that player who you want running beyond the striker, you're not going to ask him to do that anymore. That player that you've got central all the time, ask him to drift wide, you know, and these small things that suddenly they are changes that the AI will then have to adapt to again. And I think that is where player instructions might actually give you that edge above the AI.
Yeah, it all comes back down to the Nick Madden pod, doesn't it? Because the game is making so many decisions every second, and if you can do something to give yourself an advantage over the AI, then absolutely got to lean into it. I think that I am setting myself some homework this week off the back of this conversation. I'm setting myself some homework, so I'm probably due a save update at some point on the pod, because it's been a hot minute and quite a lot of stuff's happened in my save since we last spoke about it at any great length. I'm at Wolfsburg at the moment. I've only recently joined the club. I've only been there for a couple of months in game. I'm planning on sticking around for quite a long time. As we've been talking, I've been tinkering and making a couple of little changes to the system that I'm using. It's a system I want to stick with. Excuse me just a second.
Bless you.
Thank you. For the audio listeners, I muted while I sneezed. I've been making a few changes to the system, and part of the remit of my save is that every club I go to, I have to come up with a new tactic for. So there's no just plug in and play or sticking with the same formation I've used at previous clubs. So I have to take it has to be different for every club. I've been there for long enough now. I've watched enough games, and I have an idea of how this system works and how it's been playing. I have a good idea of like patterns of play, player movement. That's all kind of, I've got a picture of that in my head now. I'm going to be making some individual player instruction adjustments over the next few weeks. And when it gets to the end of save update, when next time it's my turn to do one, I'm adding that in there. Differences that these player instructions are making to my players. I'm not changing a huge amount in terms of the positions. I'm not reinventing the wheel. I'm not. Yeah. The formation is the same. The system is the same. 3 centre backs, and then the two wing backs with the double pivot in front of them, and then 2 wingers striker. That's the positional play sorted. In terms of the play instructions, I'm going to make some changes. and I'm going to feed back to you guys over the next couple of weeks as to how that's going. Is it improving things? Is it making things worse? Am I really angry? Am I delighted with the circumstances? How upset am I with my goalkeeper? Like, it's all going to come out. Like, that's that. I'm setting myself that homework as somebody that hasn't engaged with this before, and it's not like trying to create my own training schedule, because that still terrifies me. But this makes sense, and I can do this. I'm looking at that and going, God, this just makes a lot more sense. This should be quite straightforward.
That's fantastic.
What I'm going to do.
Yeah,
so that's my homework. Check back in with me in a couple of weeks. And we'll have a conversation.
The great thing about this, right, just finish it all off. We talked about training last FM, and a few people did some stuff with that they hadn't done before and all that kind of stuff. That's great. And the community were engaged with what we were doing and how we were talking about it. A little while ago, we had a podcast where we talked specifically about what are your key attributes for a striker. And that opened up interesting conversation about the whys and the wheres and the hows, etc., for all of that stuff. And I'd like it to happen here too. I want to know why, whether people use these, why they do or they don't. Is it something that they're interested in having a look into for the first time? Maybe if they do, what difference does it make, etc., etc. All of that kind of stuff. Tell us why we're wrong. I mean, it's fine. It's what we're here for, is to bring up conversation and see what the community do. What I would expect is quite a lot of the playing viewers who are purely that, they just play, they don't stream, they don't do anything else. They'll probably say, well, I've been doing this for the last decade of playing the game, because and all that stuff. And half the streamers will probably go, I probably haven't done as complicated a version of the game because it's hard to do that whilst we're streaming and stuff, and everything in between. I'm just interested as to where people sit on the scale as well. So come and tell us about key positional instructions that you tend to use across the entire lot, or do you pick out individuals, whatever it might be, but we're interested to hear.
Absolutely we are. Absolutely we are. So please do all of those things. And thank you for reminding me. I think it's, again, in the not too distant future, I would very much like to do another position, because that conversation we had about the inverted commas perfect striker, I absolutely loved. So we are due to revisit that in the not too distant future, hopefully, and we'll do a new position. We'll talk about new positions and new roles.
Get your player position options in chat as to chat. Why do I call them chat? I'm a streamer. It's what I do. Viewers, listeners, whatever you want to call yourselves, get your positional options in. Tell us what you would want us to talk about next.
Yeah, fantastic. Oh, we've just had a raid. No, we haven't. Imagine. Can you imagine? No, lovely. Yeah, let us know. Give us your opinion. Let us know which position you would like to talk about. You would like us to talk about next. As I say, we've done strikers. Obviously, centre backs, full backs, midfielders, wingers, goalkeeper, whatever it may be. Let us know. Let us know. And oh my goodness, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it so much. You try and stop us. So much. Fellas, that very much feels like a podcast to me. I don't know about the two of you. It feels quite
podcasty.
Yeah, it feels very podcasty, doesn't it?
Indeed, absolutely.
Before we start to wrap up, though, before we wrap this up, Callum, hi mate, is there anything that you would possibly like to invite anybody to, say towards the end of July?
No.
Cool. Okay. Bye, everybody.
See ya. Yes. So I've kept it pretty quiet over the last couple of years, but I've been managing Slough Town on Football Manager. Yeah, I know.
Really?
It does come as a shock. I do. It's a secret. So if you're hearing this, don't tell anyone else. But
I thought it was Blue Up.
No, don't you bring up Blue Up. Worst save ever. Right. So I've been managing Slough anyway, and I wanted to. I've been to Slough a couple of times. We went to Slough in July last year, and I thought it'd be really, really nice as an opportunity for people to go again. There's no real strings attached to it. It's just going to be a case of a group of people meeting up, perhaps for the first time. Perhaps you've met these people lots of times, but going to a game in Slough. So on the 27th of July at 1 o'clock, Slough are taking on the might of Potters Bar Town. And it's in a pre-season friendly. Arbor Park is a great stadium. The hospitality there is really, really good.
Yep.
And ultimately, I can almost guarantee you will have a really nice time. Everyone I've spoken to who went to last year had a really, really good time of it. A lot of us will be staying down there as well. So there might be some festivities after the game if you'd like to join us in those. But I have it on good authority that the two gentlemen with me will be in attendance at that game as well. So if you ultimately want to come along and get a selfie and an autograph from these two, they will be available. You will have to go through me, though. I do charge a high rate for them both, more for one than the other, but I don't want to state which one that is, but it's Kev. He's very pricey, Kev.
I am.
I've
got to learn how to spell my name before the 27th now. Come on, we can do this.
But no, it should be genuinely a really, really good time. And the invitation is open. If you are a listener, a silent listener to the podcast, and you're not someone who comments on things or comes into our streams or anything like that, you just literally listen to the podcast, come along. Why not? It'd be lovely to meet you. And as I say, it should be a really, really good day. If you're local to the area, fantastic. It's perfect for you. I'm not, believe it or not, some people think I live in Slough. I do not live in Slough. It's quite a journey for me. But it's same for Rich. It's a little bit nearer for Kev. But yeah, come along. Why not? Come and meet the lads from the FMT podcast. I've had word that there may be other people from the streaming community going down as well. It's not going to be like last year's where I'm making big announcements about anything. We're just going to be there. So if you want to come and join us and have a truly lovely day, because I know we all will.
We will.
We absolutely will. Come one, come all. There you go.
I want a selfie with Rich.
Can you imagine? I want another hug from Kev. That's what I want. I've been craving a hug from Kev for nearly the last year. So I'm going to go to Slough and get my fix. It's worth it. Yeah, come see us. Come hang out with us. Come say hi to us. If you listen to this podcast, but like Callum says, if you're a silent listener, if you don't necessarily comment on things and you're not part of the wider streaming community, we want to meet you. We want to say hi. We want to put names to faces. So come and say hello to us. We'd love that. Nothing makes us happier. Last time we were there, we met a couple of listeners last time, and it was brilliant. Absolutely fantastic. So more of that kind of thing, please and thank you. Come to Slough, 27th of July. I'm very excited. It's gonna be great. I need to break out the Slough shirt again. I need an excuse. It's absolutely huge. Fantastic. Hopefully I still fit in it. It's been a hard year for Rich in terms of calories. It's been a difficult year for Rich. So some people get summer body ready. I'm getting Slough body ready. Oh, imagine that. Imagine. Chiseled. Lads, it's been an absolute pleasure today.
It has.
I've had a wonderful time. Just before we go, if the people would like to firstly watch you, Callum, streaming Slough, was it?
I'm not sure. I've never known how to pronounce it properly, if I'm honest with you. I just guess every time. It is. It's a tough word. Really the OUGH is a tricky one, isn't it? Is it
Slog?
Slow? Not a clue. Not a clue. Anyway, yes, I'm streaming. I stream every Thursday between 5 and 7. I commit to that usually. Sometimes it changes, but I try my best. I'm also doing my best to put as much YouTube stuff out as I can. So I'm on there as well. So if you want to see any of my content, if you want to dip in, I've actually just got into the Football League. I'm in my first season in League 2. It took 9 years, but I'm in the Football League now, and we're having a wonderful time of it. So I sort of made on my YouTube, I made like an entry level video where it was sort of like, here's a quick summary of what's happened in non-league if you wanted to get into the save now, because I feel like it is like a new, I've called it a new chapter. It's like chapter 2 of the save. So if you've never watched any of my content, it's actually a really good time to get into it if you wanted to get involved. So head over to the YouTube and watch that. But you're always welcome in a chat, in a YouTube, everywhere. Not at my house, though. Don't come to my house if possible. So I'll see you in Slough.
Yeah. See you in Slough. Honestly, I think the legacy of this save for me is that the amount of people that have been referring to Liverpool's new manager as Arnie Slough, it's just perfect. Absolutely perfect. So regardless of what else happens, Callum, that's your legacy. I'm so proud of you. So proud of you. Kev, what
Yes.
about you? If people would like to watch you rolling in the aisles,
Mm.
being the most competent Manchester United manager on the podcast, where can they find you doing that?
I don't know. I mean, there was a moment last Friday where I generally thought I might lose the job after 3 months in charge, but we didn't. We survived. So other than the madness of Monday, if you're a Patreon listener and you're listening to this on Monday, I might be live now as we speak because I might be doing an all-day thing, potentially. We'll see how that works out. But if you're around, come and say hi. If you are listening to this on the Tuesday or afterwards, I did that madness on a Monday. Other than that, you can find me every weekday afternoon, 3 till 5 p.m. over on Twitch at the United City FM with currently Manchester United in my British Isles journey series. I spent £525 million in the summer transfer window that I did yesterday afternoon in readiness for Monday. I really hope it works because if not, they're going to get very cross with me. Come and check it out. What about you, Rich? What are you up to this week, stream-wise?
£525 million. My goodness gracious me. Who saw that coming? This week, if you would like to watch me at twitch.tv/RichOwensFM, I'll be continuing my journey with Wolfsburg, now complete with individual player instructions. So Monday night, Thursday night, maybe another cheeky night chucked in there as well. Life dependent, I think is the best way of putting it. So we'll keep an eye. But yeah, come hang out with me. We have a nice time. Germany is fun. I'm just thankful to have a job, realistically, at the end of the day. Just grateful for a job.
Kind of helps on the content creation front, doesn't it?
It does. Wolfsburg are great, and I hate Benfica for reasons we'll talk about in time. Lovely stuff. Well, fellas, I think that quite succinctly wraps it all up, doesn't it? So
Indeed.
Thank you very much both for your company on another Sunday afternoon. And thank you, the audience, for listening, for watching, however you are consuming this podcast. We appreciate you enormously. Thanks for hanging out with us. It's been good. I've had a lovely old time, and I hope you have too. That wraps it up for another episode of Football Manager Therapy. We will see you on the next one. Take care. Love you lots. Bye-bye.